Arthur Conan Doyle, The Return of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventure of the Empty House, Part 3. When he lowered himself to the window, the streetlight shone clearly on his face. Without the dirty glass, the light was strong. The man looked very excited. His eyes shone brightly, and his face moved with strong emotion. He was an older man with a thin, long nose, a high, bald forehead, and a large gray mustache. His hat was pushed back on his head, and his white shirt could be seen under his open coat. His face was thin and dark, with deep, hard lines. In his hand, he carried something like a stick. But when he put it on the floor, it made a metal sound. Then he took a large object from his coat pocket. He worked on it for a moment, and then there was a sharp click, like a mechanism locking into place. Still kneeling, he leaned forward and pushed hard on something like a lever. There was a long turning noise, followed by another strong click. Then he stood up. I saw that he was holding a kind of gun with a strange shape. He opened it, put something inside, and closed it again. Then he knelt down and rested the gun on the edge of the open window. I saw his mustache fall over the gun, and his eyes shine as he looked along it. He gave a small sound of satisfaction as he placed the gun against his shoulder. He was aiming at the black figure in the bright window opposite. For a moment, he stayed completely still. Then he pulled the trigger. There was a strange, loud sound and the noise of breaking glass. At that exact moment, Holmes jumped like a tiger onto the man's back and threw him to the ground. The man got up quickly and grabbed Holmes by the throat with great strength. But I hit him on the head with my revolver, and he fell again. I threw myself on him and held him down. At the same time, Holmes blew loudly on a whistle. We heard running footsteps outside. 2 uniformed policemen and 1 plainclothes detective rushed into the house and into the room. "That you, Lestrade?" said Holmes. "Yes, Mr. Holmes. I took this case myself. It is good to see you back in London, sir. I think you need a little unofficial help. 3 unsolved murders in 1 year are too many, Lestrade. But you dealt with the Molesey mystery better than usual. That is to say, you did it fairly well." We were all standing now. Our prisoner was breathing heavily, with a strong policeman on each side of him. Some people had already started to gather in the street. Holmes went to the window, shut it, and pulled down the blinds. Lestrade lit 2 candles, and the policemen uncovered their lanterns. At last, I could see our prisoner clearly. He had a very strong but dangerous face. The top of his face looked like a thinker, but the lower part showed a man who followed his desires. He must have had the ability to do great good or great evil. But when you looked at his cold blue eyes with their heavy and cynical lids, or at his strong nose and deeply lined forehead, you could clearly see that he was a dangerous man. He ignored all of us. His eyes stayed fixed on Holmes, showing both hatred and surprise. "You devil," he kept saying. "You clever, clever devil." "Ah, Colonel," said Holmes, fixing his collar. "Journeys end in lovers' meetings, as the old play says. I do not think I have seen you since you tried to kill me at the Reichenbach Fall." The colonel continued to stare at Holmes like a man who could not believe what he saw. "You clever, clever devil," was all he said. "I have not introduced you yet," said Holmes. "Gentlemen, this is Colonel Sebastian Moran. He was once an officer in the Indian Army. He is also the best big game hunter our empire has produced. Colonel, I believe no one has ever beaten your record of hunting tigers." The fierce old man said nothing. He just stared at Holmes. With his wild eyes and thick mustache, he looked very much like a tiger himself. "I am surprised that such a simple trick fooled such an experienced hunter," said Holmes. "You must know this method well. Have you not tied a young animal under a tree, then waited above with your rifle for a tiger to come? This empty house is my tree, and you are my tiger. You may have had other guns ready in case there were more tigers, or if you missed your shot. These, he pointed around, are my other guns. The comparison is perfect. Colonel Moran suddenly jumped forward with anger, but the policeman held him back. The rage on his face was frightening. "I admit that you surprised me in one small way," said Holmes. "I did not expect that you would use this empty house and this window. I thought you would attack from the street, where my friend Lestrade and his men were waiting for you. Except for that, everything has happened as I expected." Colonel Moran turned to the detective. "You may or may not have a reason to arrest me," said he, "but there is no reason for me to listen to insults from this man. If I am under the law, then everything should be done in a legal way." "Well, that sounds fair," said Lestrade. "Do you have anything more to say, Mr. Holmes, before we leave?" Holmes had picked up the strong air gun from the floor and was studying how it worked. "A very fine and special weapon," said he. "It is silent and very powerful. I knew von Herder, the blind German mechanic who made it for Professor Moriarty. I have known about this gun for years, but I have never held it before. I suggest that you study it carefully, Lestrade, and also the bullets that go with it." "You can trust us to take care of that, Mr. Holmes," said Lestrade as they all moved toward the door. "Anything else to say?" "Only to ask what charge you will bring against him." "What charge, sir?" "Of course, the attempted murder of Mr. Sherlock Holmes." "No, Lestrade. I do not want to be part of this case. You and only you should receive the credit for this important arrest. Yes, Lestrade, I congratulate you. With your usual mix of cleverness and bold action, you have caught him." "Caught him? Caught whom, Mr. Holmes?" "The man the whole police force has been trying to find, Colonel Sebastian Moran. He killed the Honorable Ronald Adair with an expanding bullet from an air gun. He shot through the open window of the second-floor front of number 427 Park Lane on the night of the 30th of last month. That is the charge, Lestrade. And now, Watson, if you do not mind the cold air from the broken window, I think half an hour in my study with a cigar may give you some interesting entertainment." Our old rooms had been kept unchanged. This was thanks to Mycroft Holmes and the care of Mrs. Hudson. When I entered, I noticed that everything was cleaner than before, but all the familiar things were still there. There was the corner for chemical experiments and the table marked with acid stains. On a shelf, I saw the line of thick notebooks and reference books that many people would have liked to destroy. The diagrams, the violin case, and the pipe rack were all there. Even the Persian slipper, where Holmes kept his tobacco, was in its place. There were two things in the room. One was Mrs. Hudson, who smiled warmly when we came in. The other was the strange figure that had been so important in the evening's events. It was a wax model of Holmes. It was made so well that it looked exactly like him. It stood on a small table, with one of Holmes's old dressing gowns placed around it. From the street, it looked completely real. "I hope you followed all my instructions, Mrs. Hudson," said Holmes. "I went on my knees, sir, just as you told me." "Excellent. You did it very well. Did you see where the bullet went?" "Yes, sir. I am afraid it has damaged your beautiful bust. It went through the head and hit the wall. I picked it up from the carpet. Here it is." Holmes held it out to me. "A soft revolver bullet, as you can see, Watson. That is very clever, because no one would expect such a bullet to be fired from an air gun. Thank you, Mrs. Hudson, for your help. And now, Watson, please sit in your old chair again. There are some things I want to discuss with you." He had taken off the old coat, and now he looked like the Holmes I knew. He was wearing his usual gray dressing gown, which he had taken from the model. "The old hunter still has steady hands and sharp eyes," said he with a laugh, as he looked at the broken head of the bust. "Right in the middle of the back of the head and straight through the brain. He was the best shot in India, and I think there are not many better in London. Do you know his name?" "No, I do not." "Well, that is fame. But if I remember correctly, you had not heard of Professor James Moriarty either, and he had one of the greatest minds of the century. Please take down my book of biographies from the shelf." He slowly turned the pages, leaning back in his chair and blowing smoke from his cigar. "My collection under the letter M is very good," said he. "Moriarty alone makes the letter important. Then there is Morgan the poisoner, and Meridew, who is remembered for bad reasons, and Matthews, who knocked out my tooth in the waiting room at Charing Cross. And finally, here is our friend from tonight." He gave me the book, and I read. "Moran, Sebastian, Colonel, no job. Formerly of the 1st Bangalore Pioneers. Born in London in 1840. Son of Sir Augustus Moran, once British minister to Persia. Educated at Eton and Oxford. Served in the Jawaki campaign, the Afghan campaign, Chaurasiab, Sherpur, and Kabul. Author of Heavy Game of the Western Himalayas, 1881. 3 Months in the Jungle, 1884. Address, Conduit Street. Clubs, the Anglo-Indian, the Tankerville, the Bagatelle Card Club." In the margin, Holmes had written, "The second most dangerous man in London." "This is surprising," said I, as I gave the book back. "His life looks like that of an honorable soldier." "It is true," said Holmes. "Up to a point, he was a good man. He always had strong nerves. People in India still tell the story of how he followed a wounded man-eating tiger into a drain. But some trees grow well for a time and then suddenly grow in a strange and ugly way. You can see the same thing in people. I have a theory that a person's life shows the history of his family. A sudden change to good or evil may come from something in his family line. A person becomes, in a way, the result of all his ancestors. It is surely rather imaginative." "Well, I do not insist on it. Whatever the reason, Colonel Moran began to go the wrong way. There was no public scandal, but India became an impossible place for him. He left and came to London. There he again got a bad reputation. At that time, Professor Moriarty found him and used him. For some time, Moran was his main assistant. Moriarty gave him a lot of money and used him only for very difficult crimes that normal criminals could not do. You may remember the death of Mrs. Stewart of Lauder in 1887. No? Well, I am sure Moran was responsible, but nothing could be proved. He hid his actions very well. Even when the Moriarty group was broken, we could not prove anything against him. Do you remember when I visited you and closed the shutters because of air guns? You probably thought I was being strange, but I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew about this special gun, and I also knew that one of the best shooters in the world might use it. When we were in Switzerland, he followed us with Moriarty. He was certainly the man who gave me those dangerous moments at the Reichenbach ledge. You can imagine that I read the newspapers carefully while I was in France. I was waiting for a chance to catch him. As long as he was free in London, my life was not safe. Day and night, I would be in danger. Sooner or later, he would find his chance. What could I do? I could not shoot him, or I would be arrested myself. I could not go to a judge. They would not act on what would seem like a wild idea. So I could do nothing but wait. I followed the crime news, knowing that one day I would catch him. Then Ronald Adair died. That was my chance. From what I knew, it was clear that Colonel Moran did it. He had played cards with the young man. He had followed him home from the club. He had shot him through the open window. There was no doubt. The bullets alone could prove his guilt. I came to London at once. The watcher saw me, and I knew he would tell the colonel. The colonel would connect my return with his crime and become very worried. I was sure he would try to kill me immediately. He would use his special weapon for this. So I gave him a perfect target in the window. I also warned the police that they might be needed. By the way, Watson, you noticed them in the doorway very accurately. Then I chose a good place to watch. I never thought he would choose the same place to attack from. Now, my dear Watson, is there anything else I should explain? Yes, said I. You have not explained why Colonel Moran killed the Honorable Ronald Adair. Ah, my dear Watson, now we enter the area of guesses. Even the most logical mind can be wrong here. Everyone can make their own idea from the facts, and your idea may be as correct as mine. You have formed an idea, then? I think it is not hard to explain the facts. It was shown that Colonel Moran and young Adair had won a lot of money together. Now Moran clearly cheated. I have known this for a long time. I believe that on the day of the murder, Adair discovered this cheating. He probably spoke to Moran in private. He may have threatened to tell others unless Moran left the club and promised never to play cards again. It is unlikely that a young man like Adair would immediately cause a big public scandal by exposing an older and well-known man. So he likely acted in this way. If Moran was removed from his clubs, it would ruin him, because he lived from cheating at cards. So he killed Adair. At that time, Adair was trying to calculate how much money he should return, since he could not keep money won dishonestly by his partner. He locked the door so that the ladies would not come in and ask questions about the money and the names. Do you think this explanation works? I have no doubt that you are correct. It will be proved or disproved at the trial. For now, whatever happens, Colonel Moran will not trouble us again. The famous airgun of von Herder will be placed in the Scotland Yard Museum. And once again, Mr. Sherlock Holmes is free to spend his life solving the many interesting problems that the busy life of London offers.